Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this session. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with Miguel Naranjo, who is Programme Officer for Global Climate Action at the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change Secretariat. So I hope I got that right, Miguel. It's very good. So Miguel is going to tell us about the support available for the UN for people starting out on their climate journeys. Miguel, if you'd like to share your screen.
Looking for the right window. I go to presentation mode.
Perfect. Oh, no, not yet. I can't see it. Okay, there we are. And I'm going to leave you to it. So here's Miguel.
All right. Thank you so much, Ruth. Thank you for the invitation and the pleasure to be with you. So as Ruth indicated, I work for the UNFCCC Secretariat, also known as UN Climate Change, based in Bonn in Germany. Our main role is to support national governments in the negotiations around climate change and the implementation of the decisions that they take after those negotiations, during those negotiations. However, there is a smaller group of colleagues within the Secretariat that works with everybody else, everybody who is not a national government. I am part of that team. So the goal of the presentation today is to share with you one of the initiatives that the Secretariat runs. We have several ways to try to support action on climate. So I'm going to present one of them, which is the Climate Neutral Now initiative. And this initiative focuses on supporting organizations of all kinds, private companies, subnational governments, NGOs, etc., in going through a process that includes estimation of their carbon footprint or the measure, the reduction of that footprint, and finally, additional contribution to climate action. So this is the focus of today. It's about this initiative and how we could support you in going through that process in your own organization. Now, maybe the first question is why? Why should companies, any organization really, but in particular companies, why should they be concerned about this? Why should you be interested in climate neutral now or climate action in general? Well, as you know, we are going through a process of global warming, which is causing climate change and which is threatening now with destroying the very basis of our modern society. The production of food, the access to water, access to energy, all of that is increasingly under threat all around the world, and not only in developing countries, but also developed ones. Therefore, climate change is threatening the very foundations of our society. We are coming dangerously close to a point where our society, as we know it, will not longer be able to function. The only way we are going to avoid reaching that point is working together. We need all levels of government, all levels of society, all stakeholders in society to work together to achieve the big transformations that are required. We are talking about changing the direction of our whole society, the way we generate energy, the way we transport ourselves, the way we manage our food production and our waste. So it's very big changes that we need to do in a very short period of time. And the only way that's going to happen is by working together. Now, most importantly for companies, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development said many years ago, business cannot succeed in a society that fails. And this was even before climate change was the big thing that it is today. Right? This was decades ago. Well, society, unfortunately, decades after, is inching closer to failure. So we are coming closer to a point, again, where our society is no longer able to function as we know it today. And that means business cannot thrive. If we don't have peace, if we don't have stability, there cannot be business. Right? Business needs peace and collaboration, stability to be able to thrive. Climate change is putting that in danger. So there is a clear business rationale for action on climate. Basically, if you want to continue operating your business in a stable and a profitable manner, you need to help address climate change. It's not just about the environment. It's not just about doing the right thing for our society. There is also a very clear bottom line reason for companies to act. Now, climate change also brings a lot of opportunities for business. We need to transform everything that I just mentioned before, the way we generate energy, transport ourselves, generate and move food around, the way we treat our waste. Everything that we do, we have to change so that we reduce or avoid completely the emission of greenhouse gases that they cause. This is an enormous opportunity for business because you need to develop processes, products, services that are new or that are better, and therefore help us achieve that goal. So for those who are ready to jump at the opportunities of providing these products, services, support, etc., there is business to be made. There is business to be made. In addition, responding to climate change brings many other benefits. We must do things that we should be doing even if there wasn't any climate change. I'm talking about managing our waste better. I'm talking about reducing the amount of energy that we use. All of these things, right, or moving to renewables. These are things that we should be doing even if there was no climate change, because they have a lot of benefits for environment, for society, and for business or for economy. So there are many reasons why business should be looking at climate change proactively. It's about the continuity of business. It's about taking opportunity of the opportunities, but taking advantage of the opportunities that are being presented, and also because if we make the way our society works better overall, that creates more stability, more peace, more well-being, and therefore more opportunities for business to grow. Now, Climate Neutral Now is the initiative where I wanted to focus today, and this is to help your company, your organization address its own contribution to climate change, which is your carbon footprint, or the amount of greenhouse gases that are produced as a result of your activities. So Climate Neutral Now as an initiative is a way to receive some support, some guidance on how to do this, how to address your footprint, and also recognition for doing that. The process is relatively simple. It starts by signing a pledge, which is a commitment to go through the process that I'm going to describe next. You sign this pledge, you send it to us, and from that moment on, you are a participant in the initiative. And then you have 1 year as a maximum to go through the process that follows, which is measuring or estimating what the greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon footprint of your organization is, setting plans and targets to reduce that footprint, then optionally contribute, which in this case until now means compensate or offset. So buy carbon credits to compensate emissions that were not avoided. This is optional. And finally, report back to us on those 3 points. And you will do this every year as long as you want to continue participating. The initiative is free of cost. There is no fee for participation. You can stop participating at any moment that you want. For whatever reasons you don't want to continue participating, there are no consequences. We support you through the process of going through these steps. So for the measure or the calculation of your carbon footprint, we have a calculator for organizations. We also have for events and for individuals. For reduction, we can also provide guidance on how to set targets and plans to reduce emissions. And for offsetting, we can also provide guidance and references where to look for credible credits that you might want to use if you decide to do it. And of course, we have a report template, which we have tried to keep as simple as possible, but as complete as, at the same time complete, so that it is credible for you to report to us. Now, depending on how well you are able to do, and it is understood that organizations need to start slowly. If they're just getting started, they will start at the lower level and then hopefully move up and improve. Depending on the level of completeness and robustness of the calculations of your carbon footprint, the plans that you have set to reduce, and finally the contribution, if you decide to contribute through offsetting of emissions, then you will be assessed as reaching bronze, silver, or gold levels. I will not go into the details of what is required to achieve each of those levels, but the idea behind this system is to allow small organizations which may not have the resources to do a full scope 3 calculation of their emissions. Scope 3 is all indirect emissions that one causes and can be quite complicated to calculate in some cases. So if an organization does not have the resources to do that, or they don't have the resources to hire a verifier, an auditor, to come and check their numbers and their plans, they can still participate. They can still participate. So schools, small organizations, SMEs, organizations like this, they can still participate in the initiative. They can still receive support and recognition for their efforts. But then when there are bigger companies or bigger organizations with more resources, then we hope that having higher levels of recognition will encourage them to do best, to move towards gold, which is until now the best practice in calculation, reduction, and compensation of emissions. So Climate Neutral Now, the initiative has around 750 participants up to now. And let me check. Yes, I have some examples afterwards. So we have around 750 participants. It has taken much higher speed in the last couple of years, which is something really good to see. There is much more interest in climate across society in the last couple of years, even in spite of the pandemic. The UN system, of course, leads by example. The UN system is carbon neutral, basically, 99% of the emissions being compensated. And we also have ways to promote additional climate action, not only directly through Climate Neutral Now, but by supporting others, including, as you can see, national governments, private companies, NGOs, etc., with their own initiatives, their own tools. The final goal is to accelerate action on climate as much as possible. These are some examples of the current participants that we have in the initiative, some of the best known maybe. You have some of the big multinationals that everybody knows, like Sony, Microsoft. We have banks, we have global Fortune 500 companies participating, but we also have regional governments, we have schools, we have small consultancy firms, law firms, architecture firms, etc. So once again, it is open to any kind of organization and any size of a company to participate. And with that, I finished the presentation, and back to you, Ruth, for the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Miguel. That was really clear. I think I just wanted to start off just with some clarification. So people may not realize how this fits in with the Sustainable Development Goals, or you might have heard SDGs being bandied around. So can you just tell us how that fits in with the UN's SDGs?
Yes, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, they are all interconnected, right? The separation that we make between the SDGs is to some extent artificial. You cannot address climate change if you're not addressing access to energy, right? You cannot address life underwater if you are not dealing with waste. So all of the SDGs are actually part of one global agenda for sustainability, and they have to be seen together and holistically. And climate change is the ideal example of that, right? Because it links to absolutely everything. If we do not act on climate, it will have a direct impact on life underwater, life on land, gender equality. And that's why I had the SDG on gender equality there. Yes, there is a clear link. Women are more affected by climate impacts than men because they are they have less resources usually in many countries. They're more vulnerable. So you will have problems on gender equality. You will have problems in access to energy, in education, health, etc. So the linkage between climate change and all of the other SDGs partnerships included is very, very strong. When one acts to address climate change, there are benefits for all of the other SDGs.
Absolutely. And just for people watching, I think you'll have seen in other people's presentations these kind of multicolored little squares. So some people choose kind of climate change, which is, I think, is 13, isn't it? Plus another couple to kind of get started on. So just if you've seen those little squares popping up, that's what this is related to. It's all part of one thing. And I was going to just reiterate with people. So anybody wanting to sort of get started with this, but who's a bit worried about the commitment it's going to take, this is a completely free program, isn't it? And people can just go on the website and sign up. And what level of commitment is there from that point then? And what level of support as well?
Yes, very good question. So usually the bigger organizations and the bigger companies don't need so much support because they have the resources to allocate. Hopefully they will allocate enough resources to go through this process. So what we do is for these big companies is provide answers to very specific questions that they have. Sometimes they may be asking where to purchase carbon credits of a particular type and that they're interested in. So we try to guide them on that, but we don't work hand in hand with them on calculation of their footprint, etc., because again, they have the resources and they can do it better without us. For smaller organizations, we work more hand in hand. So for smaller organizations, we can help in the we have this calculator that I have already mentioned. We provide access to the calculator. We answer any questions that they have about their use. We have training on how to use the calculator as well. So we can help in the first step, which is what's your carbon footprint. Then we can, once we have that calculation of the footprint, we can provide advice also on how to reduce, right? How to set targets and how to set plans to reduce. And then the compensation, if they want to do it, there is a public website where anyone can go anyway. So yes, we try to work hand in hand, especially with the smaller organizations that do not have the resources to do it on their own. I hope that clarifies.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say, everybody, if you go out and check out, we've got a kind of booth for the UN program actually on the platform. So just go and follow the links and do check it out because there's absolutely loads of information on there. And we've signed up as well. So we've just got to start reporting now, which is a bit nerve-wracking. But you'll notice that Tim from Nomad was also talking about doing it. And we can say that we have contacted the UN and they are very responsive and make it very easy for you. So do don't be worried about starting this process. Just kind of look what's there and just kind of give it a go. And I think if we all start, then we can, progress in a few years. So I've got another, looking at the questions. Are there any goals which smaller organisations should look at achieving first if they have low capital reserves, but they want to get involved? So I guess some easy, cheaper wins, I suppose.
Exactly, the low-hanging fruits. Yes, there are a few. There are a few things. It depends a lot on your location, right, and what kind of business activity you have. But the usual low-hanging fruits are the same for everyone. It's energy efficiency, changing light bulbs, all electrical equipment to more efficient ones. That immediately has an impact on, even when there might be an initial higher investment, right, or capital investment, it will generate savings on energy consumption and in the end pay itself out. There are things like changing to a renewable energy contract. This is also an easy one. usually not very expensive for the countries which have this option. Now electric vehicles are cheaper almost everywhere in the world, are cheaper than the usual fuel-powered ones, especially now with the current conflict, with the prices shooting up. Electric vehicles are definitely cheaper than the regular ones in most countries. So these are some initial wins in terms of reducing your footprint, and which will also have an economic benefit for you. Right? So it's something that you want to do anyway. And then after that, you can look at things like, well, less travel. Of course, this is not very popular depending on which industry you are in. But definitely, if it's not strictly necessary to fly, for example, avoiding that, of course, it's an economic benefit, and it's a very big benefit for the environment. But yes, more detailed suggestions can come when we know what kind of company it is.
That's great. And we've got a couple of questions from Roddy here. So does this tie into the Science-Based Target Initiative for smaller and larger organizations?
Indirectly. For the second step of Climate Neutral Now, reduce, one of the criteria to assess how well you're doing is if you have established a target or not, right? That is aligned with science. So Science-Based Targets Initiative can help you set a target, and then in that way you meet one of the requirements of Climate Neutral Now.
Okay, that's great. And Roddy's also asking, would you be able to help smaller organizations with methodology, e.g. GHG protocol questions?
Yes, exactly. The calculator that we have already gives you the responses according to the GHG protocol requirements. And yes, we provide, we answer questions on the use of the calculator and the approach based on the GHG protocol, yes.
I've got another question, maybe a bit more detailed. What happens to companies as they expand or develop and incur more carbon cost? And I suppose this is true if you're thinking about doing this where your baseline would be 2020 as well. Can they still be part of the program?
Yes, definitely. So this is one of the reasons why I always forget the word in English, but the emission calculation or the emissions footprint, the carbon footprint of the organization can be expressed per unit of income, per unit of product produced, etc. So that if the company is growing, it is understood that, or if the emissions are growing, it is understood because the company is growing, right? This is inevitable. But what matters, or what one would like to see, is that the specific emissions per unit of profit or per unit of product produced is actually staying the same or being reduced, actually. So yes, there are ways to take into account these investments, divestments, or natural growth of companies.
So this isn't about stifling growth of companies per se, is it? It's just about growing in a more carbon-friendly way, I guess.
Exactly, which is also the challenge that most developing countries have, right? They want to grow their economies, they want to develop, but it has to be hopefully in a way that is less carbon intensive than it has been until now.
I've got another question here. Does joining the initiative give companies access to other members? Do you help facilitate partnerships?
Yes, indeed. So we tried to organize during the pandemic. This was suspended, and we didn't do anything virtual. But we tried to organize sessions where we bring together participants in the initiative to exchange on best practices, experiences, etc. We have a newsletter that goes out monthly, so just once a month you wouldn't be receiving, yes, yet another newsletter. But actually, if you don't believe me, we were asked by our participants to create a newsletter, so that's why we did. But you would receive a newsletter once a month with 3 pieces of information that we think are particularly interesting for all participants, independent of what they do. And this is another way to highlight where some of them are doing or offering. And if you see someone in our list of participants that looks interesting for you to connect with, we can also facilitate directly the connection.
That's fantastic, because I think we can all learn a lot from each other. I know particularly with Nomad, who we had on before, and we certainly looked at their website and looked what organisations they joined, and that's how we found you. And it's kind of yeah, so it will just make it quicker if we learn from each other, I think. I think that is about all we've got time for, I'm afraid. But I would just like to say thank you ever so much, Miguel. That's been really, really helpful. And I cannot urge people strongly enough to go and check out the UN site. You can get to it from the booth on our platform, but it has just so much information on, and the team are really, really helpful for getting people started. So thank you very much. And thank you for your time. And everybody, I think we've got Borough Happold next. So it's all going to say goodbye and good afternoon.
Thank you.